We have our second speaker now, Dr. Maite Puig de Gabal Israelvo from the Open University of Catalonia in Barcelona. And her work throughout her professional academic career has been involved in normalising the use of Catalan, especially looking at the contribution of new speakers. I had the honour of coming to know Maite in Brussels a quarter of a century back now. It's hard to believe that, and I think we congratulated each other that we still look exactly the same as we did 25 years ago, in our eyes anyway. She now lives in Girona with her family, and at the beginning of her career she worked and lived in Wales for 5 years and worked in the language board, and she's a fluent Welsh speaker, and we normally speak to each other in Welsh with a little bit of French as well. I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I don't speak Welsh as fluently as I wanted to because it's been 30 years since I lived in Wales. I was going to say 20, but actually it's 30. Time flies, isn't it? I just wanted to say a couple of words in Welsh and then I'll be switching to English. I'll just need the pointer. There we go. It's a great pleasure to be here today celebrating the many contributions of Emeritus Professor Colin Williams to promote language policy in Wales and in many other linguistic communities in Europe and across the world. For me, it's very emotional to be here because I learned so much here at the University in Cardiff, and the supervision of Colin and the Welsh Department as a whole. And it's also very emotional to see so many good friends from many years ago. Thank you very much. I am just going to speak a little bit about language policy, but also about practice, and I'll try to summarize it, because as academics we can go on and on explaining things, so I'll try to be as succinct as possible. And as I said, I'm going to be doing my presentation in English, but I will use some Welsh in my slides. It doesn't sound logical, but you'll see as we go on.
Yeah, there you are. What I want to talk about today is talking about two examples. I might not have time to go thoroughly about these two policies or two programs that have been settled in Catalonia for some time. One of these programs is called the Voluntariat per la Llengua, that many of you might know, because actually Voluntariat per la Llengua, volunteering for the language, is Spradoli, or has been, at the starting of the initiative Siarad here in Wales, and we have many other examples that have been practicing, take volunteers for the language to Italy, Belgium, etc., to other places. There are some things that are similar to of these programs, the Voluntariat per la Llengua and Vincles. Vincles in Catalan means bonds, basically, linking. But Vincles has an emotional tone as well, un vincle emocional, an emotional bond, right? And this is a new program, all right? It's very new, and I'll tell you all about a bit later in my presentation. But one of the things that is important to take into mind is the VPL is a governmental plan managed by the Consortium for Language Normalization in collaboration with city councils and regional councils. And it was established in 2002, and it has been running and improving for more than 20 years with great results, and it has been an inspiration for many other places, as I said. And Vincles, bonds, from the other side, is quite new. We just started that. We, as I said, is a special project because it's kind of a collaborative project. We started that 2 years ago, right? And it's run by the largest Catalan NGO called Òmnium Cultural, that you could see here in the logo, Llengua, Cultura, País. and by us, by the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, with a team of researchers in collaboration with other researchers in Spain. Ani Ortega is one of them, Luisa Martín Rojo in Madrid, Basque Country, Galicia, etc. And basically, as I said, we had one pilot groups of people working in Vinclas, which I will tell you what it is about, with four groups. We started with 4 groups in 2020. And now we are more than 250 groups, right, after 2 years of running. Before going into deep into these 2 programs, I just want to give you some background information on demographics, because it is very important to control data, to know the data, to know the country you live in, all the dynamics. And that's why I want to give you some information on demographic data regarding migration, and then some information about language use, very briefly, and I will just project some information on migration policy as well. In this chart, we could see that Catalonia reached in 2023 a total population of 8 million people. This has increased not because of the birth rate in Catalonia, which is one of the lowest in Europe. It's 1.17 child per woman, so it's very low, but because we have a lot of immigration, migrants coming from all over the world, especially from Morocco, Northern Africa, South America, and increasingly as well from Asia. So of the total population of 8 million, 1,200,000 were born outside Catalonia. This population accounts for now about 16.3% of the population. But this is not the whole picture. We tell ourselves in Catalonia that Catalonia is a land of welcoming of migrants, but we are more than that. We could say that Catalonia is a land of passage. Why? Because Catalonia is not only a migration, but out migration. So a lot of people come, but then a lot of people leave, right? Migration is not something strange in our times. Migration happens everywhere around the world. In fact, the philosopher of movement, Thomas Nail, in his book, The Figure of the Migrant, states that the 21st century is and will be the century of migration. What is peculiar or important in the case of Catalonia is that between 2002 and 2022, 2.7 million arrived and have lived in Catalonia, but 1.5 million left, right? So there's a lot of movement here. It's not that we have migration, we have out-migration. And many of these out-migrants come from a family that has already a migrant history, right? So they carry on their journey towards other lands. This would count, if we count all that, people arriving and people leaving, is about 34% of the population, right? Which, if we compare this movement of population with other countries, we will be there with Luxembourg, Australia, Switzerland, Canada, etc. So, in our ethnographic fieldwork, the data I will present is based basically on ethnographic work, although obviously we look at the bigger pictures, the census, to understand the bigger picture, but we are following narratives, we are following histories. This is one of the things I will state how important it is as well to look after not what, but how and why happen things. So through this fieldwork, we've come across many stories told by other newcomers. Teachers, social workers, thousands of families have moved to Northern Europe once they've obtained a Spanish nationality, which guarantees the right to work. And all these families who have been through integration process, routing, language classes, reception classes, are now living in France, Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, etc. So it has had a great impact on public policy, from schooling to health, and to language policy, of course. Therefore, migration is key to understand the sociolinguistic dynamics of Catalonia. Basically, in this chart, we could see that basic two things, population according to place of birth, what I've been saying just now. From 1981 to 2018, the latest data we have on language use, we could see that 1/3 of the population has born in Catalonia. Okay, but it doesn't mean that they are born from Catalan original parents. Usually they are born from migrant parents as well, but born in Catalonia. And what we see is a change of who are these migrants. The red are the Spanish migrants that came to Catalonia in the 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s of last century. And the yellow are the new migrants, right? Again, if we take a look at the language according to place of birth, we could see in the final column from the right, the total numbers, we could see that 36.1% of the population use Catalan normally. They declare Catalan to be their usual language. And 7.4%, the green one, the green frange, is they speak both language. They declare them to be bilingual and they cannot choose. They say that they speak both. And 48%, the great majority of the population in Catalonia, use Spanish as their usual language. Doesn't mean that they don't know Catalan. Figures of knowledge are always higher than figures of use. That's across many communities, right? But this is use. And then obviously this little 4.4 and 3.0 other languages and other combinations. But if we look at the previous column, the one it's marked with a round red circle, this is the people from abroad that declare that only 4.6% of population born abroad use Catalan as usually, as is their normal language. And 2.9 declare that they speak both, right? These are the new speakers. We attract new speakers. Some people that come to Catalonia, migrants from abroad, learn the language and use it, but it's a minority, right? The majority learn Spanish first and mostly and use it, right? So this is a big challenge for Catalonia, right? Attracting speakers, new speakers, to learn Catalan and use it, right? This is what is this talk about, basically. Regarding policy, migration, basically we share competencies with the Spanish government, but some of these competencies are not very clear, and there's always basically problems resolved through the Spanish constitutional courts. Catalonia and Spain go usually to the Spanish constitutional court to solve these gaps in the system. And so what is clear is that Spain has, also the Spanish government, has the exclusive competencies to give or to grant citizenship, right? Many others, they have border control, etc., right? And, but this might change because the political situation in Spain now is that the PSOE government is in a minority and needs Catalan votes to keep this majority in parliament. So there's talks already about transfer of capacities and competencies to the Catalan government with further powers in migration. That we don't see how these talks are going to end, but they are on the table for sure. So this might change. What is clear as well is that we share competencies in reception and integration of migrants. Here we have this basically two laws, a Spanish Organic Law 4/2000, and one of the things that this law states is that for naturalization or getting a citizenship, you have to pass an A2 exam of Spanish. A2 is the framework, the common framework, European framework for languages, and the test of citizenship, right? This obviously has a great impact on migrants, because obviously it makes more sense for them to learn first and foremost Spanish if they have an intention of staying in Spain, Catalonia, and receive, applied for citizenship. And in the Catalan reception law, states that to acquire social integration certificate that helps granting residency permits for irregular migrants especially, they have to follow 90 hours language course in Catalan, so 41 hours in A1 and 41 hours A2, plus 15 hours course about labor market, and another 15 hours course about Catalan society and its legal framework. So these are some of the policy implementation that has been able to be implemented by the Catalan government and the general framework of competencies in migration. This has many, many problems. We have a system now that is overflowed with many migrants that want to reach Catalan courses to acquire basically this certificate, which is obviously legitimate, but they don't carry on learning the language further up the ladder. So they stay in A1 just, to acquire these. I mean, it's very understandable, but what we need to do is okay, now once you are here, how can we do to keep you in the system to learning the language and practicing, right? This is one of the many challenges we raise. And in terms of reception language policies, we have these bodies that basically the Department of Culture with the Secretary General of Language Policy and the Department of Equality and Feminism that has competencies in receiving migrants, right? And the consortium is the body, the main body, that provides tuition, provides language courses, many for free, especially at low levels, very affordable courses, together with city councils, regional councils, etc. And of course, the volunteering for the language is one of the schemes that has been developed by the CPNL, right? The language pairs. Right, but what we see here is that there is no match between the numbers of migrants who arrived in Catalonia, which is the blue line, and the number of courses available by the consortium, right, which is the main body. It's not the only one, right? It is true that in the last 2 years, the consortium has made a major effort to increase the number of courses, but they are not enough. There's more demand than supply, right? Then this is obviously a challenge, right? Those who want to reach Catalan language courses cannot sometimes, right? Usually, the most affected people we've seen that cannot reach these courses are women. Moroccan women that live in the outskirts of the cities. Sometimes they have no mobility, they have babies, they cannot take the bus to the center of language learning. So there's a lot of people, especially the most underprivileged, that cannot access these language courses, right? That we have a problem here, right? Because nobody should be left out, really, who wants to join Catalan courses to start learning the language. There are other barriers which are very, very important. Apart from the difficulty of accessing Catalan language courses, once they acquire the basics of the language, many migrants still encounter difficulties or barriers in accessing the language in their everyday lives, regardless of the availability of affordable Catalan language courses. There are many new speakers of Catalan who try to make regular use of the language, but they cannot find spaces nor people to speak it, right? So there's no mixing, there's no availability there's no access to certain spaces. A large part of the immigrant population living in Catalonia experiences segregation and exclusion, and in multiple public and private spaces, places of residence, school, health, etc., right? So many live in the outskirts, so it is a bit of a system, economic system. The Catalan language economy attracts workers and qualified workers. Many of those work in agriculture and services, tourism, 18 million tourists in Catalonia. But then we condemn them to live in the outskirts of society, right? So no wonders that once they have the possibility to find better jobs and better opportunities in other lands, they move, right? But obviously this has many, many consequences for the vitality of the language, but also for public services, etc. And another thing, there's also an added obstacle in the Catalan speakers tend to code switch to Spanish to address or to reply to newcomers, or any person who looks or sounds foreign. Accent, skin color, appearance. I would call this subaltern behavior on the part of Catalan speakers, because we are not emancipated speakers. We are subaltern speakers ourselves, being speakers of a minority language. basically, this is a major problem of conception. No? We only tend to speak Catalan to those we perceive to be Catalan. But who is Catalan? A black person? A woman with a chador is a Catalan? So this has to be worked through a new narrative of what Catalonia is. Catalonia is not a country of the Catalans, it's a country of mobility. And we have to find new narratives. This is what we have to work on. New narratives of who we are as a country of migration and passage and change, right? There are other actors, of course. If there is no supply and it's a lot of demand, the community sometimes responds. And this is very good news, because the community and individuals, some of them are very engaged with Catalan public domain, and apart from the adult schools that teach Catalan but also Spanish, there are many NGOs, like the one we are working with, Òmnium Cultural, DACAL, the Coordinadora per Associacions de la Llengua, Coordinator of Associations for the Language, and many other local small cooperatives that offer language tuition for free to migrants in every single corner of the country. But this is very small scale, very localized, right? But the community responds somehow, because the need is there, right? Just to go through the voluntariat, although if you want to have the whole picture of what is the voluntariat, you could read this chapter that was published in Language Policy and Territory First Ships for Colin Williams. Basically, it's a brilliant idea of putting together Catalan speakers and new speakers or learners, usually for 10 sessions in a semester, and we kind of in a temporality of 3 months, so they can go through the Catalan courses offered by the consortium and combine them with outings, leisure, etc. As I have just a few minutes to wrap up, I'll just give you one example of working with this scheme. And this is Jamila. Jamila is a Moroccan woman from Girona. I did participation observation research in Voluntaris per la Llengua. I became a voluntary myself, and we worked there for 2 years as volunteers, and we paired with different migrants, different people. And Jamila said to me in one of these sessions, this week I've practiced Catalan a lot with teachers. I asked Marta, the teacher of one of her daughters, why she has this label for me, why she speaks Spanish to me. She said nobody has ever spoken to her of this. The meeting has been more useful for me than my daughter. This was a meeting, a parent-tutor meeting, to talk about the progress of the child in school. And Marta said that's okay, that now from onwards she will be speaking to me in Catalan. Now I have the strength to overcome this barrier. The teacher told Isa, the daughter, that her mother was very intelligent and that she spoke Catalan very well. And Marta was shocked. She told me, tell your language partner that she's fantastic. If you build these barriers, we cannot overcome them. Marta did not know about Voluntaris per la Llengua. I described her as it was. And it exists, and this is very interesting, you don't give us the language. You don't give us the language. I feel different. A woman that has rights when she speaks Catalan. This is a very important transformation for her. And we had a chat every week for 2 years. And this was kind of in the final of our meetings. And it takes a long time to be confident, a long time to demand your rights, a long time to say to yourself, yes, I can do this, yes, I'm allowed to do this, yes, I'm a legitimate speaker, yes, I want to demand my rights. But this needs to be work in a long period of talking and accompanying migrants and new speakers, right? So it takes a long time. Going through the Vincles, basically this is kind of an experiment, because what we wanted to do as researchers is bypass academia somehow. Academia has very strict rules. You have a methodology, you have a hypothesis, you have research questions, you produce papers, and then you get different whatever. No, you go from lecturer to professor to etc. Right? Okay, we know that academia works like this, but we wanted to kind of bypass and subvert academia by becoming ourselves the researchers activists. Right? Not just researchers, but activists. This is participatory action research. And this is one of the methods we have as researchers, but engage citizens to produce change in society, right? Obviously, it has its pitfalls, it's complicated, but this project, basically, what we do is we haven't got enough tutors to teach Catalan, right? Okay, let's do a scheme that we teach to become a tutor. Right? It's not just a voluntary. You will have pedagogic skills when you come through this scheme, right? We recruit volunteers, we train them, and we create conversation groups, right? It's not a one-to-one. We have conversation groups, right? And here the process is kind of, as I said, to produce more tutors that we don't have in the system yet. So it's fast-tracking tutors. The consortium doesn't have them, so we produce them somehow, right? So this is what the project is about, creating training for new tutors, kind of fast-tracking them, and send them to have conversations and produce new speakers somehow. In the areas where the speakers don't reach these courses or consortium. So underprivileged neighborhoods, the majority, right? In Barcelona, in major cities in Catalonia. And this is the Equilink program we call, and which is a coordinated program. Basically, is what we want to do, transform. But we don't want to transform only new people, new speakers. We want to transform the mentality of traditional Catalan speakers, right? And we want them to criticize this subjectivity of being a subaltern, a non-emancipated speaker, right? And be cognizable about what it means to code switch to Spanish all the time when you see someone with a black face, right? So all this tuition, all this training, we use Paulo Freire's framework in conscientization, right? So we kind of make them aware of all these ideologies of language that we have as traditional Catalan speakers. And of course, for new speakers, we make them aware that they have the right to demand collaboration and empathy to practice and learn Catalan. And the initiative to speak is legitimate, right? The Òmnium Cultural, anyway, is a non-profit organization, huge. It has a lot of members and 70 branches. Is a powerhouse, an NGO powerhouse, basically. It's very powerful. They don't receive public money. It's private money, right? So they took us on board on this project, and they basically run it now. We kind of design it, but they decide and they project and they create and they recruit. They do everything. We obviously are there for supporting them, and we go and we participate in some groups. We do ethnographic research. We do interviews, etc. So the bondings, no? To make Catalan tuition available, create spaces for cross-cultural integration, language tuition classes on the basis of volunteers, and in collaboration with community outreach, relief organizations, schools, school parents associations, Boy Scouts, anti-racist group. Okay, we want to mobilize everyone who is mobilizable, who is engaged, right? We want to put up in every corner and join them into this project, right? Because they are already engaged somehow. So we want to engage them further into accessing the language for the... Pilar is one of the volunteers. 1 minute and finish. Pilar. The thing is that the vitality of Spanish in society is so powerful that either we propose to work on the whole issue of linguistic awareness and with the determination not to code switch, or we won't get it away with it. And for me, the battle is played in universities, in the classrooms, yes, but for me, the battle is played on the margins of society. We talked to her after the trainings we had with all the volunteers at the end of the course, and they become aware of the difficulties that we have in reaching and producing tutors and creating spaces for everybody to join and speak Catalan. So these are the new speakers, the learners. Samira, I've overcome the shyness to speak. Nawal, at the beginning I didn't understand a thing. Now I understand a lot. Jawara, the sessions have been useful to understand colleagues at work and the emails I have to read for work. Many, many stories, many, many little things that they talk to us and they change, not just in terms of language, but in terms of accessing community, accessing spaces where there's invisible barriers that we can cross because we are part of the community, we don't see these barriers, they see these barriers. These barriers are there all the time. And what we do is outreach. It's take them and say, no, you belong here, you belong to our community, come with me. Come with me and join the community. We want you, we need you, right? Conclusions. Okay, the incorporation of new speakers is vital for the sustainability of Catalan language because of the linguistic transmission is not enough. You know, all the differences in incomings and outgoings. The legal policy framework regarding language and immigration is weak, and therefore all the strategies need to be deployed for migrants to learn and use the language. Not only do formal language spaces need to be considered in the process of language learning, but informal users and learning spaces are essential through leisure, culture, community development. There must be contact and interaction between newcomers and the native population. Spatial segregation and other types of segregation are a barrier and a danger. So, if Catalan society is not producing naturally enough spaces of interaction in Catalan with newcomers, these spaces will have to be created artificially and massively by different actors, by governmental and non-governmental organizations. So, I think that we are at the end of the talk. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn.